Hey, besties.
Hey, bestie.
Imagine sitting on death row for nearly 30 years, not because you did something, but because the system decided it was easier to kill you than admit it messed up. Ha! You are now locked in to Overruled Radio, baby, where we are going to go into not just the law, and we're not just going to talk about the law, we're going to interrogate the hell out of it. Welcome to episode 12. Today, we're digging into a case that exposes just how fragile justice really is when power, politics, and ego get in the way. We'll talk about death row, due process, and what happens when the state is more committed to keeping its story straight than getting the facts right. I know many of us understand how that goes. And trust me, once we're done, you'll be questioning who the real criminals are. Cue the track. Let's go. Well, fellow Americans, well, actually, you may not be American in listening to this. So, well, folks, here we are. We have arrived. We've hit a point where some lawmakers are less interested in legislating for the people and more invested in auditioning for culture war clout, something I never thought I would say so much since doing this podcast. This week's issues on the docket is a triple feature of bad faith bills, constitutional contortions, gymnastics, bitch, and pure uncut performative outrage. These aren't just policy proposals. They're political stunts disguised as law. And someone once said, when you do clownery, the clown comes back to bite. Shout out in the comments if you know where that comes from. But without further ado, let's break down who's doing what, why it even matters, and what it says about the state of our democracy. First up, damn, here we go again. I'm telling you, the Louisiana reporting has been serious. But we're heading back to the good old, well, not so good old state of Louisiana, although that's my home. So, in case you didn't know, gosh, how do I even tee this up for y'all? But we just have no choice but to say it. Louisiana just passed House Bill 71. This bill, you may ask, it requires all public school classrooms from kindergarten through college to post the 10 Commandments by 2025. So that's by this year, as in right now, as we're recording. This is something that is going into effect. Wow. The bill, signed by Governor Jeff Landry, insists the 10 Commandments are a foundational document for American law. But civil rights groups argue it violates the Establishment Clause, which pull over it and do some Googling if you've never heard of that. And this clause especially is pertinent to the story because it mandates, within this context, a specific religious text in taxpayer-funded institutions. Okay, so what does that really mean? All right, we're incorporating church into something that is publicly funded by the taxpayers. There's supposed to be a very clear delineation between the separation of church and state. Okay, following? Great. Now, from the legal side of things, this law directly mirrors Stone versus Graham, which is from 1980, where the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a nearly identical Kentucky law. Legal experts expect immediate lawsuits as a result of this, and possibly a fast track to the Supreme Court of the United States, the unreliable Supreme Court of the United States. This Louisiana law appears to be a direct challenge to that Stone precedent from 1980, 45 years later. Louisiana's lawmakers are counting on a radically restructured Supreme Court of the United States to either let it slide or reverse precedent. And if you have been following not only the podcast, but also just the news in general, the Supreme Court has made some very controversial and unfortunate opinions. And they also have their shadow area where they like to navigate and just make decisions without even thinking about the arguments that are posed by the people and how the people are truly affected. So, more is absolutely to come on this. I'd say, this story it's less about faith, okay, and more about control. Worship who you want, love who you want. It could all be so simple. Lauryn Hill said it best. But you'd rather make it hard. This precedent is going to set a very dangerous atmosphere for government-endorsed religion and the erasure of religious plurality, meaning multiple religions being able to exist in one space. That's why having a sense of spirituality, religion, etc. is so personal. And when we try and then put that as a blanket on top of all of our students from kindergarten through college, you are actively oppressing people and also trying to force them to believe a central theory that may or may not coincide with what their spiritual beliefs are at home with their families. Ooh, this thing is loaded. This thing got some wheels on it and it's running off the rails. So whether you're religious or not, guys, public schools shouldn't be pulpits. I feel like we can all agree on that, yeah? This is state-sponsored dogma, and it's got lawsuit written all over it. I won't be surprised to see how many, I was about to say redirects, how many appeals will pop up as a result of the decision that comes in either side based off of whether this law will be able to stick in Louisiana. More to come for sure on this story. Next up, we're heading down to Florida. And Florida, y'all are very chaotic and problematic at times. But shout out to all of my Florida listeners and those of you who are from Florida and also understand exactly what I mean when I say that. Y'all wanted a remix? Oh, baby. Guess what? The Stop Woke Act is back with a sequel. Yeah, let's talk about it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' infamous Stop Woke law, aimed at banning DEI training and any talk of systemic racism, is back in the spotlight as federal courts weigh whether it's flat out constitutional or is it unconstitutional. Now, this law currently bans schools and workplaces from discussing race and gender in ways that the state deems divisive. Translation: you can't acknowledge oppression if it makes anyone feel uncomfortable. Yeah, that's the standard. And yes, that is something that we have always, as people of color coming from communities of color, we're always told, haven't you guys gotten over that yet? Oh, I didn't do it. Oh, it makes me uncomfortable hearing about slavery. Oh, it makes me uncomfortable hearing about gay oppression and all of the riots. It makes me uncomfortable to hear about people being in interracial relationships, yada, yada, yada. It is wild at the white fragility of it all and the way that minority groups, I'll say it this way, have to censor their pain for white approval. Bitch, we are not doing that. It's 2025. But I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to get back to the story. Okay, so federal courts have already blocked parts of the law for violating the First Amendment and academic freedom. Thank goodness. But Florida's still fighting to uphold it, arguing it's about preventing indoctrination.
Excuse me?
Preventing indoctrination. Interesting. Critics say it's censorship with a political bow on top. I'd agree. This Y'all, this is what happens when state power is used to erase history, not teach it. When you can't talk about systemic racism or equity without a government muzzle, what you're left with isn't education. It's propaganda, state-sponsored. Thank you very much.
Yeah, double homicide.
The education system is in place to empower, not to sanitize. DEI isn't indoctrination. It's a mirror to this country, a mirror to exactly what we have experienced as a people, across race, across gender, across sexual orientation and fluidity. And speaking of that mirror, if that mirror makes some folks uncomfortable, maybe the problem isn't the lesson plan. Maybe it's who's looking in the mirror. All right, and for our last story, we're gonna take it on up to South Carolina, where they're currently floating the death penalty for abortion providers. So let's talk about what the situation is. A bill introduced in South Carolina proposes making abortion providers eligible for the death penalty. You heard me right. They want to punish doctors with execution. They want to really establish that they hate the idea of abortions. And so let's kill the people that have gone through all the training in order to heal others. Make sense? Highly illogical? Of course it is. Even though this bill hasn't passed, the fact that it's been formally introduced shows how far-right lawmakers are escalating the stakes in the post-Dobbs and in the post-Roe v. Wade era. It's not about protecting life at all. It's about weaponizing state power to terrorize communities and police women's bodies. This bill goes against decades of constitutional interpretation around privacy, bodily autonomy, and proportional punishment. It's extreme enough to draw Eighth Amendment challenges. Cruel and unusual punishment, anyone? If not, go check out the Eighth Amendment. So I just have to make it plain here. This isn't just about anti-abortion. It's clearly anti-humanity. It criminalizes healthcare workers, and sets a terrifying precedent that reproductive rights don't just get erased, they get executed. It's dystopian in nature, and it's nonsense dressed up as pro-life politics. You can't be that far gone to realize that this argument about abortion is way bigger than pro-life or pro-choice. It's about power, and also it's about misogyny, and it's also about how that misogynistic leadership wants to police women's bodies, or the bodies of those who have reproductive organs. So, if you're wondering how fascism sneaks in, baby, this is it. Bills like this are warning shots, loud ones. Don't look away from this. So friends, let's play a game. What do these three stories have in common? They're not about policy. They're about posturing. They're about scoring headlines and stoking fear instead of solving real-world American problems. But here's the truth, and this is a fact. Laws built on spectacle crumble quickly under scrutiny. Coming up, precedent pending. And we're going to talk about the case of Richard Glossip, a man the state of Oklahoma nearly executed twice, despite gaping holes in the case. But now, the Supreme Court and even the state's own Attorney General are finally saying, maybe we got it wrong. This is not the place or the time where you would want to have that realization. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, friends, welcome back and welcome to Precedent Pending, where we talk about the cases that have the potential to place our rights in a full freefall. Let's talk about a case that is less law and order and more law and chaos. Imagine, folks, follow me here. Imagine being sentenced to death, not once, but twice, on the word of the person who actually committed the murder. No fingerprints, no weapon, no DNA. Just a deal made in the shadows to avoid the needle. That's not a plot twist from a legal thriller. That's not something that I took from an investigation discovery show, which, shout out, we love our true crime. That's the real life story of Richard Glossip, a man caught in the web of a justice system that seems highly allergic to accountability. So, let's go ahead and dig into Glossip versus Oklahoma, a death row case that is being fully re-examined. Richard Glossip has become a symbol of everything that can go wrong in a capital punishment case. Convicted of orchestrating a 1997 murder and sentenced to death twice, his case has unraveled like a true crime podcast written by Sarah Koenig. False testimony, withheld evidence, and a state ready to execute a man despite all the warning signs. That is not justice, y'all. That's a state-sanctioned mistake waiting to happen. So, how did Richard get here in the first damn place? Let's talk about the actual crime. In January 1997, motel owner Barry Van Treese was murdered. The actual killer, Justin Sneed, confessed, but said Glossip hired him to do it. In exchange for his testimony, Sneed avoided the death penalty. That's the entire case. You're welcome. No physical evidence, no forensic proof, just the word of a man with everything to gain and very little to lose. So, as a result of this very flimsy, flip-floppy, paper-thin case, Glossip's first conviction was tossed out the first time for ineffective legal representation. But in his second trial, the same weak foundation surprisingly held. Now, over the years, new facts kept surfacing, suggesting that prosecutors didn't just get it wrong, they helped it stay wrong. The state withheld key mental health records about Sneed and let him give misleading testimony. That's not just shady, it's unconstitutional. And it's also perjury. He was lying under oath. What the hell were they thinking? But I digress. In 2025, the US Supreme Court finally intervened. They ruled that Glossip's right to due process had been violated. The bombshell? Oklahoma's own attorney general agreed. That's right. The state that wanted him dead admitted the trial was flawed and farcical at best. The court ordered a new trial, citing the prosecution's failure to correct false testimony. Now, within the community, there were a lot of people that sounded off, thankfully, at this injustice. State Representative Kevin McDougal, a Republican and former death penalty supporter, became one of Glossip's most outspoken advocates. He stated, "They can show me nothing that ties him. And the one thing they have is a witness that says that he was the one that told him to commit the murder." Guess who that witness was? The actual murderer. He got off death row himself and got life in prison. McDougal even pledged to campaign against the death penalty in Oklahoma if Glossip is executed. Now, Oklahoma Attorney General Genter Drummond echoed the concern, stating, "I do not believe that justice is served by executing a man based on the testimony of a compromised witness." Compromise is putting it very mildly. Renowned anti-death penalty advocate Sister Helen Prejean, who has served as Glossip's spiritual advisor, reacted to the court's ruling by saying, "Wonderful news. I hope that authorities will simply give him time served and set him free and not do the new trial." At public forums and community rallies across Oklahoma, citizens have gathered in support of Glossip, demanding transparency and accountability. This isn't just about one man. It's about the integrity of the justice system as a whole. The Glossip case can set some very, very controversial precedents. First, it isn't just about Richard Glossip. I hope that everyone understands that when we do these dissections. It's about whether the justice system has any interest in actual justice when the stakes are life and death. And that happens day in, day out in this country to many, many communities, most often communities of color, most often Black men. If the courts follow through with real reforms, this could lead to broader requirements for transparency in capital cases, meaning much more information being shared, a level of certainty, if you will, that the offender committed the crime and not some flimsy paper plate as case that they had before in 1977 that got Glossip the death penalty in the first place. Prosecutors could face tighter rules about disclosure, and courts might adopt more rigorous safeguards before someone else gets a needle in their arm. Operative word, might. It could breathe new life into the national movement to abolish the death penalty, or at least pause and ask, are we sure we got this right? Glossip's case is a damning referendum on prosecutorial power, on lazy trials, and deadly outcomes. And it forces us to ask, how many other people are on death row because someone cut corners or played politics? If you're ever curious, one of the great resources that you can tap into is the Innocence Project. And I'll make sure that I have that in the show notes. Justice is supposed to be blind, but in this case, and in many others, it's been looking the other way for far too long. Is it too much to ask to hold our judicial system accountable? I mean, after all, they're quick to hold us accountable for things we did or did not do. Let's lift that mirror up and have them take action. Now, after that whirlwind of due process disaster, let's pivot to something a little more enlightening, but still legally juicy. It's time for Cite Me, Don't Fight Me, where we dig up fun, weird, or downright fascinating legal facts you didn't know you needed. Buckle up, folks. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, my legal eagles, welcome back to the show. We've arrived at Cite Me, Don't Fight Me, the segment where we dig up legal facts that sound made up but are very, very real. This week, we've got bedroom bans, posthumous proposals, and a medieval meltdown in modern day court. Y'all, the law's about to get very, very weird. You've been warned. So, Texas. Let's start with you, Diva. Oh man. So let's talk about the Texas Penal Code Law 43.21. Texas once tried to limit freedom, as a proud state that they are. They also wanted to limit freedom in your underwear drawer. This may sound vaguely familiar from another state. From a previous episode, Texas said they wanted in on it as well. Texas had a law that said owning more than 6 sex toys was a crime. 6 was fine. A tasteful collection, if you will. But 7? You're a criminal and clearly up to something very organized. I suspect RICO charges may be fitting. What? The law labeled them as obscene devices. And yes, people were actually arrested. In Reliable Consultants versus Earl, a 2008 case, the Fifth Circuit struck it down as unconstitutional. Because really, why are you trying to regulate what I have in my bedroom drawer? The court's reasoning? Because apparently adults have the right to pleasure and privacy. Groundbreaking. But plot twist, the law is technically still on the books. Unenforceable, but undead. Like a vibrator zombie waiting to be resurrected. Bzz, bzz. Oh man, didn't. Okay, come on. You gotta have a dad joke in here somewhere, okay? It's Easter egg. But the bottom line here, folks, is that in Texas, you can open carry a gun, but you cannot have a backup vibrator at all, especially if it's the 7th one in your collection. Okay, so this next one, we're going on an international trip here. I think this is probably the first international law that I'm including in here, but yeah, we're gonna go. This one's fitting. I'll say that for sure. So we're gonna boogie on over to France, where you can literally marry a corpse.
Excuse me?
Now let's talk about French Civil Code, Article 171. Because guess what? Nothing says I do like rigor mortis or rigor mortis for those of you who watch Drag Race and remember Alyssa Edwards. All right, since 1959, y'all, French citizens can legally marry their dead partners. All you need is proof that they intended to marry you before they died. And this can be love letters, engagement pics, text messages, well, not in 1959, but text messages present day. Like, LOL, let's get married if we're both single at 30. You know, some of that you see on TV? Yeah, you get the idea. Now, you still need presidential approval. Yes, presidential approval. But it's a real marriage, inheritance rights and all. It's typically used for tragic cases, not some Netflix documentary material. Though I say anything can happen, give it time. Bottom line here, it's the only marriage where being ghosted is a requirement. Oh man, come on. That's another one, guys. Come on. It's the only marriage where being ghosted is a requirement. Give me something on that one. Y'all got to give me a good one on that one. I need an applause for that one. I worked hard on that. Okay. All right, so moving to our last law that we want to talk about today. Let's talk something we haven't heard probably since the 1800s at best. Trial by combat. Guess what? That is still not technically illegal in the state of New York. The problem here with the law is that there is no law. So it's an actual known provision, but there is no law. Make it make sense. How? No. So let's talk about it. Let's make sense of this. Let's put some clarity here on the situation, because this doesn't make sense. In 2015, a Staten Island man, naturally, petitioned the court to settle a family dispute through trial by combat. He cited medieval common law and demanded the right to sword fight his ex-wife's lawyer. Somebody was not happy about the divorce settlement, clearly. Or maybe his ex-wife was sleeping with a divorce lawyer. This is juicy. I need to get more information on that and share with y'all. But back back to the law here. The judge thankfully denied it. Not because there's a law against it, but because no. There's actually no statute on the books explicitly banning it. So if you ever wanted to turn small claims court into a Game of Thrones episode, well, you're still going to get laughed at, and you're going to get laughed out of court, but not arrested yet. At the end of the day, trial by fighting, trial by battling, it's technically possible. Morally ridiculous. And legally, we're just scared to check on how deep this goes. So class, what did we learn today? The law is serious, but it can also be straight up strange. And that's gonna be it for Cite Me, Don't Fight Me this week. Your weekly reminder that laws can be just as unhinged as the people who write them, or don't write them, but they still colloquially exist. Whether it's regulating orgasms, marrying ghosts, or sword fighting your ex in court, the legal system never fails to surprise or deliver. Until next time, respect your rights, read the fine print, girl. And if someone challenges you to trial by combat, baby, call a lawyer, not a blacksmith. This ain't forged in fire. This is not Game of Thrones. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with our fourth and final segment, Objection, Your Honor. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome to Objection, Your Honor, the segment where we yank the mic from the morally bankrupt and call out the Constitution cosplayers for what they really are. And today, I am very loudly objecting to a growing lie that's as tired as it is dangerous. That immigrants are the threat, a threat, and authoritarian crackdowns are the solution. Let's get one thing straight. Immigrants, documented and undocumented, are not a threat to this country. They are this country. They are building our homes, caring for our children, harvesting our food, keeping our hospitals running, empowering industries that most politicians wouldn't last 5 minutes working in. And yet, every single election season, here comes the fear-mongering parade. Illegals, invasions, cartels, and whatever other buzzword tested well in a focus group in a closed-door strategy meeting. But this year, it's hitting different. Because now we're not just talking rhetoric. We're talking raids, militarized arrests, and state-sanctioned panic. In Los Angeles, here, right in my own backyard, where I call home, immigration sweeps and surprise ICE raids have returned with a vengeance, targeting day laborers and undocumented workers just trying to survive. Protesters have taken to the streets, demanding an end to the terror tactics. Their signs read, "We are not criminals. Families not fear. And no human being is illegal." Fact. And still, the crackdowns continue. Not because they solve any problem whatsoever, but because they make good campaign optics for leaders who want power, not peace. And it's just not in LA. From Florida to Texas, governors are turning anti-immigrant policies into political brands, busing migrants across state lines like they're political pawns, threatening sanctuary cities, gutting asylum protections. Y'all, it's all a part of a script. Authoritarianism 101. Let's check the board. Step 1, find a scapegoat. Check. Step 2, stoke public fear. Check. Step 3. Crack down hard enough to distract from the fact that you're not actually fixing anything. Check. This is not about border security or illegals running around in the bushes chasing people down, raping and killing. And it's not about that, y'all. It's about exercising power and control. It's about distracting the public with fear while stripping away democracy, human rights, and basic decency. We're watching elected officials trade compassion for clout and democracy for dominance. And we've seen this movie before, y'all. It doesn't end well. Because let's be honest, okay? If your political power depends on demonizing people who pick your produce, clean your hotels, or save your grandma's life in the ER, you're not fit to lead. You're just an opportunist in a designer suit with a cheap orange tan. Now clock that. So, here's my objection today. Your Honor, stop treating immigrants like the threat. They're not the problem. They're part of the promise. The real threat is the growing list of politicians willing to shred human rights to score political points. America doesn't need more border walls. It needs more courage, more empathy, and more leaders who understand that liberty and justice aren't just for citizens with papers. They're for people. People who overwhelmingly want to provide for themselves, their families, and create opportunities to succeed. Period. And one last thing. Let's not tell people that they are illegal on stolen land. We can't regulate stolen land, and we can't say that certain people don't belong here when the founding fathers stole this land in the very first place. Don't forget that. Colonialism, all of that, that's a part of the American fabric. And so the notion that someone is illegal or someone doesn't belong here is very moot when you look at how we got here in the first damn place. All right, my legal eagles, that's a wrap on episode 12 of Overruled. If today's show left you fired up, cracking up, or just double checking your drawer for contraband in Texas, you're welcome. We've covered everything from death row injustices to lawmakers playing moral hall monitor with the Constitution, to ghost marriages and gladiator custody battles. So if you're wondering, did that really happen today? Yes. Why, yes, it did. And that's why Overruled is here. To make sense of the chaos, one outrageous law at a time. Now, if you love the show or even rage listened your way through it, thanks for the listen. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be stingy. Share it with your group chat, your office Slack, your cousin who is kind of strangely into the Constitution more than anyone really should be. Yeah, send it over to them. And also follow us for more legal truth bombs on social media. We're at Overruled Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. The Overruled Podcast on YouTube. Give us a like, a follow, and most importantly, a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. It really, really helps. And while you're at it, you can check out extra resources and support the show by heading over to thisistheoverruledpodcast.com. That's thisistheoverruledpodcast.com. Bookmark it. Tattoo it. Maybe don't do that. That's weird. I won't stop you though. Until next time, keep your rights close, your receipts closer, and remember, if the law is being used to silence, punish, or distract, it's up to us to call it out loudly. Because here, the court of public opinion is always in session, and the ops want you to be quiet. Bye. Done. We done. We done. We done. We done. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, what song is coming to my head? I'm trying to think of what is the first song that comes to my head. Hey, that's a real one. And your reflection without a follow, without a mention. You really piping up on these niggas. You gotta be nice for what to these niggas? I understand. That is actually a great ender. Ooh, child. That's a good one. That one's good. That one's good. Okay. Y'all know show is over, girl. Show's over. We here. We're at JB's Afties. Hope you have your little something because I'm gonna talk with y'all just a little minute. Give y'all a little bit of what's going on. So, baby. As I look to my other camera, baby. When I tell you today, if I had to describe today in one word, I would say dynamic. And I feel like that really constitutes like a full range of happy, not happy, weird, all of it. Okay. Um, Before I continue, hold on. As you know, the doll baby loves to have a little drink that I share with you all that I'm sipping on outside of my water that I have here at my desk. Now, today's drink, I really enjoy these just in general because they have different flavors. But this is San Pellegrino's Essenza, and it's sparkling water, but it has natural fruit juices incorporated. This one's tangerine and wild strawberry. And it's just sweet enough. These are also really good, y'all. And this ain't even sponsored, but these are really good for cutting like a liquor. Like if you're having like I don't know, if you like a tequila soda or a tequila, not tequila, tequila, a Tito's soda, something like that. You could cut it with this instead of doing just plain soda water, and it gives that little bit of flavor, and then put a little lime in there and abracadabra. Okay, no gaga, but we enjoy gaga. Okay, so anyway, like I was saying, today has been very dynamic as I have been recording. Um, all I can say, because I'm not putting all my business out there at all, but I will say that it was unfortunate to find out some of the things that I found out today um, from someone that I was I was developing something with. They didn't work out. Okay? And listen, it hurt, it hit hard, and it was unexpected. But listen, the price just can but listen, I have to cut that. Oh no, I'm not gonna cut it because I couldn't even speak there. All I was gonna say is the price has gone up even higher. Um, I am very intentional about anyone that I date, anyone that is in my orbit, my friends, everyone. I appreciate them all. They're intentional relationships that I genuinely value because I recognize that I didn't have those same relationships when I was little and I was bullied for so much, so often, and really longed for those connections. So as an adult, I really appreciate each relationship that I form. And in this most recent situation of the person that I was talking to, it kind of completely went left out of nowhere for me. And of course, my intuition kicks in. Of course, I believe in God. So I know that my angels, everyone was looking down and really telling me bullet dodged. So um, I have been dealing with that today and this week in general. And work has also been kicking my ass a little bit, but we still persist, right? That's all we can do, huh? Um, let's see. I'm enjoying that I am, putting out these episodes to y'all. As you see, I kind of tinker around with certain effects or cutting music for like comedic timing. And I have gotten some great feedback that people really enjoy that. So that makes me happy because it's really just giving you a little piece of me. That's it. That's it. And I have something that I'm going to share soon that I'm going to do. Um, if people are interested, and if no one does it, if no one joins or no one, commits to it, I can at least say I did a thing for this podcast, and I I really feel excited about it. More to come. Okay, that's really all that I have for today. I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for um, allowing me to invade your space and share space with you for the last hour or however long it has been. And I hope that you really do, appreciate the content that I am putting out as I continue to refine and get it better, get it where I want it to be. I'm still very proud of this, and it has been such a labor of love. Um, and that labor of love is because I want to help people and really just get information out that people don't know on average. Okay. That's it. All right, y'all. I got to go finish up some work, do laundry, and I need to go water my front yard because it's been kind of like a heat wave this week in LA. And I know here I am sitting with a damn dry fit shirt on, buttoned up, not buttoned up, zipped up to the top, like like a purity garment or something. But the AC's on in here. So we're cozy. Um, yeah, that's all I got. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one.